Hi, and thank you once again for tuning in to TGM Television for our Bible study. It is Wednesday night, and we are in the house.
Woo! Yeah! TGM!
It's good. Thank you all for tuning in for my Facebook Live crew, for my TGM Television crew. Once again, it's Wednesday night. I'm excited about this lesson. Tonight's lesson is going to be kind of different. We're going to kind of talk through it. But before that, I want to remind you guys to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @the_God Movement. Visit our website, www.thegodmovement.com. And for those of you who are watching us on TGM Television, thank you. For those of you who do not know about TGM Television, we have our own YouTube channel. It's called TGM Television.
Yeah.
And you can tune in and you can watch all the Wednesday night Bible studies that we do. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Tonight's lesson is coming from Galatians chapter 5, verse 7 through verse 9. And what we're going to do tonight, what's going on in the text, we're just lifting the thought of what Paul is saying. All right. Our lesson kind of goes along with it, but I'm not going to go line by line, verse by verse tonight. We're just lifting the thought of what Paul is saying to the church. Okay. Galatians chapter 5, verse 7 through 9. And tonight, our lesson is dealing with influences. What influences your mind? What moves you? Or what has moved you? What kinds of things, influence our behavior, influence our thought patterns? You know what I'm saying? Influence our actions, influence our reactions. What are your influences? And that's what we kind of dealing with tonight. Galatians chapter 5, verse number 7. It says, my Bible reads different, okay? It says, you were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion did not come from him who calls you. And then he says, a little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough. And it would seem like the last verse doesn't go, but what he's saying is something so small can cause such a big chain reaction, right? All right. So with that said, I want to ask a question. Somebody, anybody, everybody, if you want, give me something that you feel influences your mind. Go. Some music. That's good. That's. She said music. Good. Okay. Music does influence your mind. What else influences your mind? So, I like it. Certain TV shows. We're gonna go into that. All right. I got you. All right. All right. All right. What else? That's all we got. TV show. Positive thoughts. Okay. Okay. That's good. We're gonna go into that also. All right. The reason why I asked that question is because basically what Paul is saying, and like I said, we're just gonna lift the thought of what he's saying. He's saying to them, "You guys were doing good. What happened that made you change your mind? What persuaded you to do something different, to think something different? What persuaded you to behave in a different manner?" And these are new converts. And if you know anything about new converts, new babes in Christ is what we call them. When you first born, as a firstborn child, you have to learn to walk. You have to learn to talk. You have to learn to do everything, basically, how to feed yourself. And when you come into the knowledge of God, when you come into being a Christian, just like babies, you are easily influenced. When you start into anything, you start a new job, people can influence you to do things that are not even in your job description, and you don't know or understand that because you're fresh. You know what I'm saying? And so this was kind of what was going on. The new converts were being influenced and persuaded by people, who didn't believe as Paul believed, basically. All right, so they were new converts, babes in Christianity, and babes are easily influenced. All right. I'm gonna start with a term that says, and I know we've heard this before. We are considered as peculiar people living in the world but not of the world. I want somebody to tell me, what does that mean to you? To be in the world but to not be of the world. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Lois, what that mean to you? Lolo. I don't want to call on names. Lolo. what does living in the world but not of the world, what does that mean to you? How would you define that or describe that in your own words?
Basically, it's like you're in a location or in an area, but because of the type of person you are, you just don't fit in. You just don't fit in for whatever reason because you've been set apart for something, and your surroundings or your environment is not conducive to what you are.
Right. Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that. To be out of place, out of sorts, so to speak. Everybody else is doing one thing, and you just kind of like, I'm not vibing that. You know what I'm saying? Y'all go, well, this is me. I'm not really a clubber. So, but the times that I did go to the club, I was sitting there, everybody else having fun, and I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. The phrase of the world defines lifestyles and behaviors that are influenced by the world. So if I was to say this, they're of the world, that's saying basically that their lifestyle, their action, their behavior, their mindset is influenced by worldly things. Is that a fair statement? All right. All right. So what distinguishes the Christian is that we are not of the world because we are not influenced by the world. So when I say of the world, that would entail a person or people who are influenced by their world. But to be a Christian, it means to not be influenced by the world, but to be influenced by something that's not connected to the world. Is that a fair statement? All right. So then the understanding is our minds and actions are supposed to be influenced by a source that is not connected to the world. But many who say that they are Christians still live their lives by values that are commonly accepted. And I want us to catch that because the term Christian denotes that you live like Christ, right? All right, but what a lot of times what we do is we get confused commonly accepted values with God's values. Does that make sense? Things that are commonly accepted. Besides, okay, I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer. Okay,
Also, they're not all Christ like.
that's exactly the point. But a lot of times, though, you'll find people who say, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I am a Christian. But the value system is based on the world's value system. So it's like this. We all agree murder is wrong, right? Cheating is wrong, lying is wrong, stealing is wrong. We all can agree to that. But where God's morals and values kind of take us one way and the world's values take us a different way, like homosexuality. That's one of those things that the world will accept and go along with and be cool with. But that's one of those things that God has already said, this is not it. You see what I'm saying? So
The word of God, it also influences us. And also we are set apart.
we rolling right into that. We rolling right into that. Yeah, I know. That's we rolling right into that. You was right. You're right. We rolling into that. Many who say they're Christians still live their lives by values that are commonly accepted. Here's my question: are you living by what's commonly accepted, or are you living by God's moral standard? Here's my thing. My thing is, if I say that I'm a Christian, and that means to be in the world but not of the world, that means that the world does not influence my mind, right? The world does not influence my behavior. The world does not influence my train of thought, right? So my thing is, if I say that I'm a Christian, then am I being guided, or am I being influenced by what's commonly accepted, or am I being guided and influenced by God's morals, God's principles, God's standards? Does that make sense? Have you ever asked yourself that question? If I consider myself to be a Christian, if I consider myself to be a Christian, what then influences my mind? What influences my thoughts? What influences my behavior? Miss Carmen, you pretty much gave it away. But what's supposed to influence it is the word of God, the principles, the precepts, the way that we do things, the way that we act, the way that we talk, the way that we handle going about doing things. And I want to highlight that the Bible is there to influence our thoughts, but it is not something that happens like that. Just like a baby has to learn to walk. Babies just don't start running. And so to me, this is why teaching is so important, because it teaches us the values of God, what God likes, what God doesn't like, how we supposed to respond. You know what I'm saying? How we supposed to handle different things, certain things in our, in our daily walk of life. But the understanding is that if we call ourselves Christians, our understanding cannot be able to be influenced by things that on the outside of us. So you understand what I'm saying? So there has to be a difference in what influences our mind. So then the question becomes, and this is a prequel to a lesson that I've already done, but I'm going to come back and do it. And it's called Don't Forget Your Function. And what it's talking about is we are the salt of the earth. And so if you know anything about salt or seasoning, if you put salt in a pot of soup, the soup does not influence the salt, right? But the salt influences the soup. So you can put soup into salt all you want to, but the soup is not going to change the salt, but it's the salt that changes the soup. You understand what I'm saying? So here's the question. Are you being influenced or are you being an influence? Have you ever thought of that? Am I being influenced or am I being an influence? I know it's kind of a play on words.
Yeah.
Am I being an influence or am I being influenced? That's the I really would like for us to kind of consider that. Understand that we are supposed to be the difference makers. Look, catch it. We are supposed to be the difference makers. We are not supposed to be made different. Does that make sense? Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be not conformed to this world. And basically what they're saying is change your source of influence. Because when I was in the world, I went along with the things that the world was along with, right? It was cool because the only thing that I had to base my value system off of was what? The people around me, the things that I saw, the people that I were hung around. We all basically had the same value system until I decided to say, you know what? I think I want to change some things in my life. Now my value system is different. It's similar in some areas, but it's different. And so then the question becomes, are you being an influence or are you being influenced? It's changing your source of influence. Who or what has been influencing your thoughts, your actions, or your behavior? Jay, who or what has influenced your thoughts, your behavior, or your actions? Or you know what? How about this? Here's a better one. How about all of us think of a person who has influenced your thoughts, your behavior? Think of it. Give me somebody. I can give you one. Yeah, it can be one. I'm just saying, put somebody in your mind that influence your thoughts and behavior in a good way. It can be more than one. Put somebody in your mind who influenced your thoughts or behavior in a bad way. Consider that. Who has been influencing your thoughts, your actions? Now, here's another question. Do you think, okay, not just who, yeah, everybody have somebody who influenced you in a good way, right? I got a few people who influenced me. I got a few people who influenced me in some bad ways. I got a few people who I influenced in some bad ways. Come on, we just be real. That I influenced in some bad ways. That's the whole lesson right there. Now look, we can say the comment for after the lesson, but you keep putting them. You keep putting them. You keep putting them. All right. Yeah, I know. That's exactly the lesson, though. That's exact. See, you're giving away all the nuggets. All right. Okay. Now that's for who? That's for who, right? That's for who? We can all think of people who have influenced us, people who we have influenced. Now, here's another question. Do you think what you read, what you watch, and what you hear can influence your thoughts? I'm glad that y'all said that because a lot of times, here's what I'm thinking. Well, here's what I learned. I learned a lot of, okay, it's just like what we eat. What we eat has an effect on our body, on our physical health. What we digest mentally has an effect on our mental health. So now here's the thing. The thing is that you can't expect to be positive if you're always reading or hearing or watching something negative. Now look, I don't want us to take this too far because I have heard people, say, because I like to watch a lot of action on TV. I watch Harry Potter, and people were saying that Harry Potter is of the devil or whatever. To me, it was entertaining. It's very entertaining to me. The understanding is when I say influence, I'm saying this. If 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 I'm gonna put it this way. I can watch all the Harry Potter that I want.
Yeah.
But Harry Potter is not going to influence my mind to practice sorcery. You understand?
Right.
We got to be able to distinguish. My thing is, if I'm going to allow something like that, or Harry Potter, who people say is the devil or whatever they want to call it, it's not that is the thing that's influencing my mind. I can study my Bible, and I know that at the end of the day, God is going to influence my actions, my thoughts, my behavior more than something on TV that you understand what I'm saying? Now here's the next question. The next question is, if what you read, what you see, and what you hear does influence your mind, my question to us as Christians is, how often have you given God a time or a space in your mind to influence your mind? You understand what I'm saying? See, like, we fill our minds with all this other kind of stuff, but how often do we allow God a chance to influence our thoughts? And this is why that morning prayer, 5 minutes, is so important. If you want to read a scripture or a chapter a day, that's allowing God to come in so that he can influence your mind, especially, and you don't realize it, but it works the same way. If you read a lot of sex novels, don't be surprised that during the run of the day, you all of a sudden start feeling some type of way in your body because that's what you've been feeding your mind. Now watch it works the same way with God. If you just take that 5 minutes or that 10 minutes to read a scripture or to say a prayer, and then later on during the day, it won't be a surprise when God starts saying something to you or when he starts leading you in a certain or specific way. You understand what I'm saying? It's because at that moment you don't realize it, but you're allowing it to come in. You understand what I'm saying? So now here's the thing. The thing is that when you consider not just who, but what it is that we allow inside our minds, then it begins to. I start to process my actions or my behaviors or my thoughts to say, where did this desire come from? Where did this thought come from? Is this my thought, or is this my conclusion, or is this somebody else's conclusion that they put in my head? Does that make sense? Is this somebody else's thinking in my mind, or is this my thinking? You know what I'm saying? And here's my thing. My reason for saying this is it goes in a lesson. It's just a thought that's lifted from the lesson, because a lot of times the people who we are around can influence our minds without us really realizing it. You know what I'm saying? Paul says it this way: bad company corrupts good morals. I want us to consider. All right, everybody in here, think of a friend or group of friends who may be your friend or may not be your friend anymore, and think of what kind of influence did they have on your mind. Have you ever cared strongly for a person that just wasn't good for your psyche, if that makes sense? That just wasn't good for where you was trying to go. And so then their words or their speech or their action or behavior or disposition or a process of thought was not good for where it is that you were trying to go in your life. Have you ever been there? Have you ever experienced that? A friend or a group of friends who you realize, man, they cool, but for where I'm trying to go, I don't need this kind. And see, this is the thing. I don't want us to get caught up on I can't hang out with certain people, and that's that. I don't want it to sound as if I'm saying, be mean or no. I want us to evaluate the things that we allow to come into our minds, allow to come into our space, allow ourselves to hear and process. Because whether you know it or not, the people who you hang around, they do have a lot to do with what's influencing your mind, your thoughts, your actions, your behavior. And you know what I say, like my mom used to say, that birds of a feather flock together. How many of y'all agree with that? Birds of a feather flock together. All right. So look, if you want to be rich, or if you want to grow your money, there you go. Why would you hang around with people that's broke if you trying to grow your money? If you want to have a successful relationship, why you hanging around with people that club or chase a lot of different women or men? or people who have had a track record of unsuccessful relationships or are in an unhappy relationship. Why would you surround yourself or why would you surround your mate around people like that? Do you understand what I'm saying? The understanding is that the people and the things that we hang around do have influences on our minds, whether we know it or not. Influences act like this very subtly. Right? You don't recognize that it's happening, but it's happening. Is that a true statement or a fair statement? And here's Paul. He says, man, you started off doing so good. What happened? You started off so great. What happened? How many of y'all made a New Year's resolution before? I have. All right, I made a New Year's resolution one year that I was going to quit smoking. I said that. I eventually quit. But the thing is that I had to get around influences that smoked, right? So if I wanted to change something, I had to get away from the thing that would pull it. And so, all right. So then my next question would be, do you feel like you're strong enough? Okay, now if you was going to ask a question, okay. All right, we can come back to the comments. It goes right back to the question of, are you being an influence or are you being influenced? In the place that you are right now, think of the jobs that you work. Think of the place that you are. Think of the think of the place that you work. Think of the things that you're around, the friends that you're around, the people that you hang out with. Are you being influenced or are you being an influence? And here's the thing. If you are not strong enough to be an influence, then whether you know it or not, you are being influenced. There you go. There you go. Somebody else and this is why this is a prequel to the lesson of being salt in the earth. This is the prequel to understanding our function. And our function is to be difference makers, not to be made different. Be not conformed, but be transformed. It's changing our sources of influence. Consider your circle of friends. Bad company corrupts good manners. Consider your circle of friends. This is what I want us to get tonight. Paul says you started off so good. Man, you started off saving so good. What happened? You know, if you hang around four broke people, you're going to be the fifth one. If you hang around four people that don't know how to control their mouth, you're going to be the fifth one. And this is the understanding. Consider our circle of friends. Consider the people who you hang around with, who you cool with. Are you being influenced or are you being an influence? And here's the thing. He says to them, what persuaded your mind to act like that? What persuaded you to do that? What persuaded you to be like that when you started off so good? What kind of thoughts? Who put that in your mind? Hey, how many of y'all got kids? How many of y'all got kids? I got kids. And one of the things that happened with the kids, and this is what the teachers say, oh, he was doing so great, and then we got a new student, and all of a sudden his behavior changed. So immediately they thinking, it's not just him, but it's the influence of somebody else around him that's inflicting his behavior. Now, here's the thing. We grown. We all grown, right? But how many times you're going to see it on the TGM television. How many times do people or the group of people that we're around influence how we act, how we behave, how we talk? Think of that. Think of that. There's a lesson I'm working on right now, and it's called Stop Acting Funny. And the reason why that is because at one given time at church, we all act a certain way. We know how to perform. We know how to put it on. We know how to put it together. But you get this same person around a group of folk who ain't never been to church. They're going to completely switch up. And my thing is, are you going to be who and what you are? Are you going to stand for what you stand for? Or are you going to be influenced by the group of people that you're around? You see what I'm saying? And this is what I'm talking about when I say influence. We don't really realize it, but it does really make a difference, especially if you say or call yourself a Christian or you're changing your life or you're being different. The thing is, how do you act when you are not around a certain group of people? Are you influenced by who you're around? Are you influenced by what you're around? Or are you being a difference maker? You know what I'm saying? I have to pray that prayer a lot of times myself at work because I never know what God is doing with me. Yeah. God may just have you around some people so that you can be that difference in their life. You see what I'm saying? So that you can be that voice of positivity in their life. That voice of reason in their life. There's a story in the Bible where there's a man named Naaman. And he goes to see the prophet. And the prophet don't even come out to him. The prophet sends somebody out to him. And the problem with Naaman was he had a pride problem.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there were men that were with him. Now, when the prophet came out and told him how to get delivered, Naaman got mad. But the people that was around him said, hey, man, wait a minute, calm down. If if he had told you to do this, you would have been okay with it. But he just told you to do something simple. Just go and do it and get your healing. I said that to say this. Imagine if he had people around him that was going to fuel or boost his ego as opposed to somebody who was going to speak logic and reason to him. You see what I'm saying? My thing to us tonight is, what kind of voice are we to the people that we around? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What kind of influence are we to the people that we around? Influence work like this. It don't just work on you, but it works through you.
Yeah.
Why do you think God wanted to touch your life? He didn't touch your life just for you. He touched your life so that you could touch other people's lives. You understand what I'm saying? He put positivity in your mind so that you can be that positive voice in somebody else's mind. And you don't realize it right now, but God just may have you to be that influence in your child's life, in your coworker's life, in your girlfriend's life, in your friend's life. God just may have you to be that influence in their life. How do you know that where you are in your life right now, that God didn't put you there just so you could influence someone to think positive today? Over time, you see what I'm saying? Over time, you don't realize the good that you're doing and where God is using you just by doing what it is that you're supposed to do. You see what I'm saying? All right. So think of your circle of friends. Bad company corrupts good morals. What kind of influences have they been to your mind? God may be calling for us to change what we have been feeding our minds. I call it a mental diet. God may be calling us to change what it is that we feed our minds.
Yeah.
I stopped watching so much TV and I started reading different kind of books. Why? Because the books are going to influence my thought patterns. You understand what I'm saying? It may sound lame to a whole lot of people,
Yeah.
but it is so mind-blowing how 30 minutes of reading, if you're into real estate, if you're into leadership, if you're into making money, growing your money, you'll be surprised how different your thought patterns will be if you allow these kinds of influences to infiltrate in your psyche. You understand what I'm saying? We are so caught up so many times on not hurting our friends' feelings, and we just can't say, you know what, man, I would love to hang out with you, but I got something else that I got to do right now. You know what I'm saying? And that's not being mean. That's being respectful. I love you, bro. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to stay right here. You know what I'm saying? I got to expand my mind. I got to change the people that's influencing my mind. And so if you're not going where I'm trying to get my life to go, then I need to kind of cut my time with you. We can still chill, but I need to be a little bit more productive. I need something else speaking to my mind. You understand what I'm saying? This is why reading the Bible is so important, because it influences my mind to believe in me, and not just in me, but in the power of God through me. You understand what I'm saying? The Word of God, just reading a chapter a day, it helps my psyche to believe when I get frustrated or when it seems like God's way don't work. It helps me to believe during those times. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the understanding. The understanding is maybe God is calling for us to change what we have been feeding our minds, our mental diet.
Yeah.
We change our physical diet because we want to get healthy. But we don't think about changing what it is that we digest, what we read, what we allow ourselves to listen to. This stuff does play a part in our mind, whether you believe it or not. And so, at the end of the day, at the conclusion of this, with 28:45, disconnections are necessary. I want y'all to say that with me. Say, disconnections are necessary. All right, disconnections are necessary. I want us to think of something. It may not be a person. It may not be a person. But think of something that may be toxic to your forward progress. I like the word that you used, Jay. Think of something that you may be doing or feeding your mind that may be toxic to your forward progress. Consider that. It may be a friend. It may be something you're watching on TV. It could be anything. What is something that is toxic to your forward progress? That may just be, a lot of times we don't realize it or recognize it. We don't. But it's the subtle pushes, the subtle things that we overlook a lot of times they have the biggest of difference. God wanted me to change what I was reading, change who I was listening to. And so it got kind of difficult because it was like I hit a glass ceiling. Have you ever been that way? It's like I know it's more there, but I don't know how to get to it. I know it's more, I know it's deeper, but I don't know how to reach it. And when you get to that point, that means it's time to disconnect. You know, disconnections are necessary. I had to cut off some people and some things. I had to reevaluate my friends. I had to reevaluate my priorities because I wanted my life to go in a different direction. Now, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Influences are so important. Some people are simply not good for your mental health, for your emotional health, for your spiritual health. If you want to see yourself excel, surround yourself with people who are excelling. Proverbs 13 and 20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Here's the thing. Have you ever hung out with some people who was doing some stupid stuff? Yeah. I have. Found yourself caught up in some stupid stuff. You know, find yourself in something like, I wasn't even trying to go here. I wasn't even trying to do this. Consider influence. All right, so I need somebody to kind of comment with me or speak on that. Speak on an example or a memory of being influenced by something. And I can start it out. I used to have a friend. I was in school and we were cool. I'm about to cut off in a minute. We were cool. But the thing is where my life was headed, his life wasn't headed. And the thing is I didn't realize it, but he was having an impact on my life to where my life started going in a completely different direction. And I didn't understand why. I didn't understand what was happening. You know, I didn't understand, like, man, I know I wanted to be this way. I know I wanted to go that way. But why is it not going there? And the understanding that I had to come to was whenever I had decided I was going to do one thing, I would hang out with my friend and we would end up doing something totally different. And it's just like, and this is how the enemy works. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He don't do it all at one time. He do it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, slowly persuading you, influencing your mind to not do this. Let's do this. Yeah. It's just going to be quick. It's just going to take 5 minutes and then you can come right back to it. Not realizing that 5 minutes is going to derail most of your time. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else want to share anything? Anybody else want to share anything? Here's tonight's lesson in a nutshell. We're going to cut it off. Thank you for tuning in. Here's tonight's lesson in a nutshell. We have to surround ourselves with influences that are going to take our lives, take our minds, our behavior and thoughts into the direction that God would have us to go. And whether you believe it or not, God would have us to be successful, happy, whole, as blessed as we can be. And that's the thing. The gist of tonight's lesson, when we talk about influences, it is surrounding ourselves with influences that are going to take us to the next level. You may be wondering why you're not where it is that you want to be. And maybe it is because you're hanging around the wrong people, or you're allowing the wrong people to influence your mind in the wrong ways. So here's the case in point. An airplane cannot overcome drag without letting some cargo go. The way that airplanes fly is they minimize the load and they maximize the lift. What am I saying? If there's too much baggage, it's going to take the plane longer to get off the ground if it gets off the ground at all. Right. And here's our lives. Our lives, we have so many things hooked up to us that are detrimental to our takeoff. Yeah. And you wonder why it hasn't happened yet. And understanding is that it's still hanging on to the wings. You got too much baggage hanging on you. And we have to surround ourselves with people that's going to help us take off, not people that's going to try to hold us down to the ground. And I had to learn this. I had to surround myself with people who are going to speak positive, who are going to help me to think positive, who are going to inspire and encourage my faith, and not people who are going to criticize. You see what I'm saying? And point out my flaws and point out my weaknesses, and people who are going to nitpick and say things against my character or about my dreams and vision. Does that make sense? And tonight we're talking about influences. I want us all to consider the influence that we have in our life. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in. There are comments. I will answer all of those comments on Facebook. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to have a little more discussion offline. But remember to tune in, visit our website, thegodmovement.com. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, _God Movement, and watch us on YouTube, TGM Television. Be blessed. Thank y'all for tuning in one more time. And you guys, thank you guys for tuning in. And I love you.